Is Dak Prescott the NFL's MVP after 14 weeks? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Cowboys. Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Landon, we are going to review some of our all 22 notes from this fantastic Cowboy-Eagle game on Sunday night. I want to start with Dak Prescott. I don't think this was his best game of the season. In fact, I don't even think this was a top 5 game for him in the season. But he managed to beat the Eagles, put up 33 points, play a pretty flawless game outside of one fumble. Do you believe that Dak is the MVP after 13 games?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I think it's at this point, it's not close. I mean, I think the MVP is a quarterback. You know, to say what you want about it, the MVP is a quarterback award. I mean, there definitely have been exceptions, but I mean, it's a pretty clear, trophy. You know, it's the most valuable player, and the quarterback is by far the most valuable position. So the player that's playing the best at quarterback is kind of by definition the most valuable player. I mean, I think you're definitely going to have a guy in Tyreek Hill who is going to make some hay outside of that position just because he's been so exceptional. But I think that, you know, that at the end of the day, so is Dak Prescott. And look, I think you said it. Like, I mean, he didn't have statistically the best game that he's had in a while, and on tape, you know, I think you could easily say that his 2 best throws of the day, without a doubt, in my mind, were drops. You know, I think there was that one throw that he threw up the sideline to CeeDee Lamb, where it hit CeeDee Lamb in the hands in stride. You know, later in the game, that CeeDee just couldn't get a hand on. I think was just disrupted by the safety being there last minute. And then there was another one where Dak threw a ball to Cooks in the end zone where the guy tripped into Cooks and fell at his legs, and Cooks was unable to kind of come down with the ball, but it was a gorgeous throw. And just look beyond that, I think what we're seeing is a guy who has put it all together, right? Yeah. Like it's, I think the biggest difference between, and Dak talks about it a lot, is understanding the threshold of when the snap is transitioning from on track to off track, right? Or on a schedule to off schedule, or however you want to, in structure to out of structure is probably the best way to phrase it, right? You've heard Mike McCarthy talk about the 2.3 seconds. You've heard Dak talk about his footwork, but ultimately what it is about defining a time and telling Dak, hey, this is the point when structure is done. You need to get out of it and create, right? Mm-hmm. And that has found a way to marry the 2 best aspects of Dak's game, which I think have been very disparate at times, right? We've seen on schedule Dak Prescott, right? Early 2021, he's throwing from the pocket. He's, getting rid of it. We've seen off schedule good Dak Prescott. It's 2016 at times, just being able to get out of the pocket, create. This is the season where it feels like those 2 sides, which have been kind of not, incongruent with each other. And I think last year was the best example of that, where it felt like Dak was throwing interceptions while in this transition period, or taking sacks while in this transition period, because he doesn't know when to escape. He doesn't know when the structure should be abandoned and he should be creating. McCarthy coming in, having him listen to his footwork, having listen to his feet to know when the progression is done and it's time to kind of get into improv mode. It's taken Dak's game to a whole new level because he can get to the progressions he needs to while taking his hops, and then his feet tell him it's time to go. And I think it's just made for just hell for defenses because you could be right all the way up for 2.5 seconds, and then Dak breaks the pocket, changes all the windows, and suddenly he's made a 30-yard throw because CeeDee Lamb, just moved 10 feet behind you while you didn't notice and you're looking at the quarterback.
I also think there's just been this. He knows when he needs to go out and make plays, and he's got off that fast starts. Like I want to go back to week 2. The Cowboys win the toss against the Jets, and rather than deferring to their defense and letting the defense try to win that game early, they take the ball against this Jets defense that is still really good, march the ball right down the field, score a touchdown in the game. I don't want to say it's over at that point, but they put the Jets behind a hole they could never really get back from, right? Against the Eagles, you take the ball, you go right down the first drive of the game, you score a touchdown, and you already are putting the Eagles in a position where they have to press a little bit. Those are the kind of starts that the Cowboys just didn't have last year. There was way too many games where it felt a little bit clunky in the first half and they struggled to get points. And, they would have halves where they maybe would only score 6 points. They went touchdown, field goal, touchdown on their only 4 drives in this Eagle game. And it was over. And that last touchdown drive, it was 17-6. The Eagles were going to get the ball back at halftime. You felt like the Cowboys needed to go down there and get points. And not only did they get points, they scored a touchdown with basically no time left. I just feel like Dak has been up for those moments more than he has in previous years.
And the other huge part of this is that, everything around him is working a lot better. He just has more answers for more questions, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just incredibly difficult to cover CD and Ferguson and Cooks 10, 15 yards down the field while still staying close enough to Pollard that he can't slip up and take a dump off for 5 or 6 yards, or close enough to Dak where he can't just run out of the front of the pocket and pick up 5 or 6 easy yards. And
he's been such a smarter runner this year than he has been in previous years. Like he's not running for more yards. It's just when you need 4 yards on 3rd and 3, he goes out and gets it,
Yeah. And is not forcing it into super tight windows unnecessarily. Nope. Right. No. Like he's got other options, other ways to win. And he's availing himself. And that's why he's at his highest rate of big time throw percentage in his career, while simultaneously being at the lowest interception or turnover worthy play percentage. So, I mean, when you're number one in both of those categories, I think he's number 1 in one and number 2 in the other. I mean, that pretty much that's an MVP year to me, in my opinion.
So he's basically done everything that you need to win the MVP. He leads the NFL in passing touchdowns. No team in the NFL has more wins than the Cowboys right now. The Cowboys are the number 1 offense in the league. They just beat the Eagles, who had the best record in the league coming into this week. The only thing he has left to do is to go on the road and beat a really good team. And I don't know if you count the Bills or the Dolphins as really good teams because they're in the AFC. I don't know.
What's a really good team? Are the Cowboys the only really good team left? That's going to be the thing that's going to be held against them.
Maybe
since they're the only good team left, but they can't beat themselves. Like
I think if they go to Buffalo and Miami and they win those 2 games and Dak plays well, I think he's going to be the MVP. I mean, I don't even think he has to play great. Just play well enough to win. And even if the Cowboys are the 5 seed, if they go ahead and do that, I do think he's going to be the MVP.
Yeah, and we talked about it. Like it's the confidence level that is going to drive this team, right? And if they can go in and show that they can do those, win those kind of games on the road against playoff teams, not only is it going to give the team confidence to go do what they need to do in the playoffs, I think it's going to give the voters confidence to make Dak the MVP, making him, I'm pretty sure, the first Cowboys quarterback to be MVP. Like
I think Emmett's the only other Cowboy MVP ever.
I think that's right. Yeah. Which is, I mean, think about like the history of the Cowboys. Like you can't tell the story of the NFL without the history of Cowboys quarterbacks, right? I mean, yeah, it's pretty crazy to me that Roger Staubach never won an MVP award. That's just
it's also crazy that the Cowboys have the favorites right now on FanDuel for not only the MVP, but also the defensive player of the year in Micah Parsons. They would be the first team ever to have the MVP and defensive player of the year on the same team. There's only ever been one other Cowboy to win defensive player of the year. Do you know who it is?
Randy White, maybe? I don't know.
Nope. Not a bad guess. Harvey Martin.
Harvey Martin. Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
in
A great
1977.
player, very underrated, honestly, and for years and years and years, didn't get the credit that he deserved. I felt like as one of the great sack artists of the
Yeah.
early period when right as sacks were being counted as a stat. So
Yeah.
really
Yeah,
great player.
it's time for the Cowboys to get a Defensive Player of the Year winner here. All right, let's talk about Jake Ferguson, who had another big game on Sunday. We will get to him next. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Gametime is the fastest and the easiest way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. I've been actually shopping all day today to find some Cowboy Bills tickets.
Let's
Pretty decent
go.
prices right now. I know. I'd really like to get.
Let's go.
I know. You should use Gametime. Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. This is how I bought tickets before to go to the Bills games. You can see the prices right on there. There's no fees included. You can see exactly what your seat is going to look like before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We wanted to let you know that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, Landon, I want to have a conversation about Jake Ferguson. Yet again, it was a really good Jake Ferguson game. And it feels like over the last couple weeks, the Cowboys have kind of leaned into him being the number 2 passing option. What did you think of Ferguson against the Eagles?
Yeah, I mean, again, I was not shocked or surprised to see Fergie as a main target against the Eagles. I mean, I think the kind of film shows you that they were going to be susceptible to his sort of targeting, right? And frankly, every defense has been pretty susceptible to the Cowboys in the seam routes specifically. That's just been something that you just don't see a lot of quarterbacks throwing anymore. And so teams just aren't, used to having to defend it on a regular basis. And they feel like, there's a level of physicality that happens in that kind of area that a lot of offenses are just avoiding. Ferguson has no problem going up and getting those balls. And frankly, he runs the route really well. I just love the way that he has the understanding to bend his route out to kind of create cushion inside and underneath for Dak to throw the ball safely without, getting in harm's way. He's just doing everything at a very high level right now,
Yep.
and when I guess part of being Barry Alvarez's grandson, is obviously a legendary coach at Wisconsin, is that when you grow up, you're being fed the intricacies of football throughout your life. And it's just, you just see that with him. He's just, even though he's a young player, I mean, it's only his second year, he just seems very nuanced in his play. Right. And I think the other thing that we have to point out too is, look, he's been excellent as a receiver. He's been incredible with the ball in his hands. I mean, he's basically the best yak receiver the Cowboys have had at tight end in, ever, as far as I know. And I think the other thing that really has kind of defined him and a lot of the offense is his physicality. Like, he is not afraid at all to mix it up, whether it's like, hip checking defensive ends into their run fits for the tackles, or I posted one series of pictures of him just absolutely flopping sweat like onto the ground with one of his hip checks. It was awesome. And anytime there's a hard hit on him or anybody else, he's the first guy to get in there to mix it up. He's not afraid of anybody, certainly not afraid of letting Jamal Adams know that it was a first down or a touchdown any single time he caught the ball. So Ferguson is developing into one of my favorite players on the team. Like, I just love watching the dude play and just the passion he plays with and the physicality. And I think it's really kind of helped marry the physical toughness aspect of this offense with the finesse aspect of this offense in a way that kind of has seemed disparate at times. There's just a lot of harmony in this offense that wasn't there, and I think before, and I think a lot of it has to do with the crossover of who Jake Ferguson is and the respect that he's gained on this team.
Yeah, I don't think Jake Ferguson is like a top 3 or top 5 tight end in the league right now or anything. However, when you're talking about like the dual threat tight ends that can catch the ball and block, to me, it's like it's George Kittle. And then it might be Ferguson because he's really gotten better as a run blocker this year. And we've seen how much better he's gotten as a receiver. There's other guys out there that are, really good receivers that you basically have to line up. Like, I'll give you an example. Trey McBride for the Cardinals is having a really good season. Like the last couple of weeks, he's been awesome. He can't block. He's too small to block. Ferguson, you can line him up in line and he's going to knock over your Pro Bowl defensive end. That's what the Cowboys have been missing the last couple of years, is the guy that can actually do both.
Yeah, and I'll just throw in Scooney here just for a second because I've been so impressed with him. But I just feel like the blocking from the tight end position this year has been leaps and bounds better than it has been in the previous years.
Gosh,
and it's not even just that Ferguson is a better blocker than Schultz was. And I think it's that the tight end too, like Scooney is a better blocker than Ferguson was last year, you know, and I think so it's rising all ships. I also want to just throw out while we're here, I think the change in pass protection that has happened for the running backs, and this is something that's worth noting that the Cowboys have had the running backs in as pass protectors. I think they've already eclipsed last season's pass protection snaps at running back. And I think that's made a difference for the tight ends, right? Because there's less of having to stay in and chip or stay in and be part of pass protection, though they have been very good at it when they've been asked to do it, the tight ends, because the running backs are taking on more of an onus of pass protection and then also taking on the onus of the kind of outlet receiver, right? Like what we used to see is, this is probably very familiar to Cowboys fans who've watched a lot of tape, Ferguson getting the outlet pass and then going up the field, saying now we're seeing that as Pollard. That's giving more opportunities for Ferguson and these guys to get down the field, which is why we're seeing more seam shots. I think everything's just fitting a lot nicer, and Ferguson has been a major benefit of all of that.
Over the last month, according to Pro Football Focus, Luke Schoonmaker has the 4th highest run blocking grade among all tight ends, and he's the highest pass blocking grade tight end in the league. So, I mean, you're getting elite blocking from Schoonmaker. I know he's not giving you the receiving production yet, but I think you and I both believe it's coming. We should also mention Peyton Hendershot did play. I think it was 19 snaps in this game. You saw him immediately they started putting him in motion and kind of doing some fun things on short yardage. I got to believe that his role in the offense is only going to grow over the next month or so.
It's coming for sure. We're biding our time, but we've seen it already. I think.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about that 2022 draft class that included Jake Ferguson next. This episode is brought to you by DoorDash. Did the game go to timeout? Time to order in with DoorDash. Is it halftime? That is ordering in time. 2-minute warning. You got it. That is your cue to order in. Whenever the game clock stops, that's your time to order in with DoorDash. Listen, we love DoorDash here. We DoorDash all the time, especially during football games. It's so nice not to have to get up to make food. You can just get it delivered right to your door. We are big pizza and wings fans, but you can order burgers, sodas, or even just buns on DoorDash and get it all delivered without missing the game. Get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter promo code LOCK23, subject to change, terms apply. Again, that is 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter promo code LOCK23, subject to change, terms apply. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Every day or on tomorrow's show, we're going to be answering your Twitter questions, so make sure that you send them in to us at Marcus_Mosier, at McCoolBCB. Landon, one more thing I wanted to talk about before we head out was the play of the draft picks from the 2022 class in this game. So we already mentioned Jake Ferguson. I don't want to spend too much time on him, but you have in that class, you have Tyler Smith, who had an unbelievable game, but Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis had 0 pressures combined in this game, by the way, 0. Sam Williams, big Sam Williams game. Jalen Tolbert, who we talked about on yesterday's show, all he did as a blocker. You had Damone Clark and Marquise Bell were your 2 starting linebackers. I thought they were incredible. Deron Bland just gave up 8 yards on 4 targets. Peyton Hendershot, who we mentioned, what a performance by this rookie class or the second-year class.
And Sam Williams, kind of the guy there that we didn't mention a ton of, but he had a good game too. He played well. It's just not, huge on the stat sheet, but yeah, I mean, just again, like how many of these classes do the Cowboys have or have had over the years where they just top to bottom contributors, right? And like this is what separates this team from a lot of other teams. This team drafts, accumulates talent as well as any team in the NFL. We often, can complain about the how they do it or when they don't go after the guys we want. And look, sometimes there's right, sometimes we're wrong, but I think they have earned the right to stand on their laurels and enjoy some success from their the player acquisition side, because I mean you just showed it, like the fact that they're able to get starter level plus. I mean, frankly, Marquise Bell is better than just starter level plus, level linebacker play from an undrafted free agent. You're in every single draft pick and some undrafted free agents contributing at some level. Just kudos to Will McClay and to Stephen Jones and everyone in the front office, because they've shown time and time again that they are one of the best, if not the best, at doing this.
I thought Marquise Bell was incredible in this game. Yeah. I mean, he was flying around. Now, there was a couple times where he probably should have made a better tackle attempt than what he did. But I thought he was really, really good. And there's other players I forgot to mention. Now, Wanya Thomas didn't play a lot in this game, but he was somebody who was also in that class. Kavonte Turpin, another undrafted free agent from that class. He had the long end around. He drew a pass interference call that was pretty important. Not an every down player for the Cowboys, but man, he is a nice little weapon to have whenever you need some explosive plays in your offense, and it costs you absolutely nothing to get him.
Yeah, and just again, like finding the same way that they found Aubrey this year, right? There's like no stone unturned. USFL, come get a tryout. Like you were a science teacher last week, come get a tryout. Like, that's the thing about it, is that it's not just the draft, right? It's not just the Cowboys are good at drafting. It's they find guys, to off the street. They find guys from other leagues. They find guys, just wherever, and they use every method available to them to find these guys and bring them in. And it's quite incredible the team they've assembled so far.
So how many guys from this draft class did you have make at least one play in this game on Sunday? There was Tyler Smith, Sam Williams, Jalen Tolbert, Jake Ferguson, Damone Clark, Marquise Bell, Wanya Thomas, Kavonte Turpin. Anybody else I'm forgetting?
I don't.
I mean, that's Deron Bland. Deron Bland.
Yeah, Bland.
That's 9 players from one draft class and one undrafted free agent class that helps you win a big game on Sunday Night Football. I don't want to be overly dramatic here, but that draft class could be very well the reason why the Cowboys Super Bowl window can stay open for the next 2 or 3 years, because you got so many quality starters. By the way, Peyton Hendershot, I know he didn't play a ton, but that's 10 guys. That's a fourth of your roster.
Yeah, and again, this is part of the reason that the Cowboys are not always so willing to just part ways with draft picks, even late rounders, because they can get guys that can come in and contribute. But I think you look at the other side of it too. You got some pretty strong contributions from Stephon Gilmore. You got some pretty strong contributions from Brandon Cooks too. So every different way that they can acquire these players.
Jonathan Hankins. I mean, I know he got hurt in this game, but he's been helping you a lot. Those 3 draft picks that you've spent that cost you basically nothing.
Yeah. So the Cowboys have just been very solid doing this for a long time, and it's added up over time, and now you've got a roster that's quite an incredible mix of young players and veterans that they've acquired through all different methods.
All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen of the day. Again, every day is on tomorrow's show. We're going to answer your Twitter questions. Send them into us at Marcus_Mosher, at McCoolBCB. Check out our show on YouTube. We post videos every single day over there. The last Locked On Now that Landon did was absolutely hilarious. Make sure you go check that out. Again, we'll be back tomorrow. Make sure you're downloading the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and we will see you right back here on Wednesday.